I've had, used and abused my PC-based Oculus Rift, Quest 1 and Quest 2 for a long time, and whilst I certainly have had some incredible VR experiences with each of them, nothing has ever really superseded that very first VR experience. But having tried my youngest son's PSVR1 a number of times, I've always felt like he was the one that was missing out, because frankly, even the Oculus Rift delivered a better VR experience than the PSVR version 1. Today, however, he bought himself the just-released PSVR2 direct from PlayStation for just over £500. Now, I initially felt that was a ludicrously overpriced product just because it was a Sony PlayStation thing, and partially because you cannot seem to buy it anywhere else. But having spent a bit of time with it today, I've realised that actually PlayStation have tried to develop and release a proper VR device with some significant improvements, especially over the PSVR1, and rather surprisingly, some improvements over the Oculus Quest 2 also. Now, I'm very aware that the Oculus Quest 2 is quite an old device now, and new PC devices are on the market, but A, I find the price of those devices to be completely ridiculous, and most importantly, the next VR headset that I plan on buying is going to have to be damn near indistinguishable from real life, and that device has not yet been invented. But let's focus on the PSVR2 first. From my initial couple of hours setting it up and trying it out, I've got to say that there are a number of things which impress me. First of all, the setup procedure now includes many Quest-like touches, like tapping the floor to get accurate height adjustment, but it immediately delivers more with features like eye tracking, which is set up in just seconds. The device itself is super lightweight, very comfortable, and it accommodates glasses superbly. It also seems to be a lot less hot and sweaty than the original was, both areas where the Quest 2 lags behind. There are some other Quest 2-like features which have been added as well, adjustable lens positions, and the ability to use the tracking cameras so you can see with the headset still on without having to take the headset off. They call it see-through mode. Although it's still wired, the wire is much lighter than the PSVR version. It's longer and it's considerably less irritating. It's almost weightless, to be quite honest. Overall, it's far less irritating than any cable that I've got for my Quest 2 devices as well. The stereo earbuds that come with it can be completely disconnected, which is handy, but when they are connected, they also deliver a high quality audio, and because they clip into the back of the headset, they are very comfy and secure in use, even if you're swinging your head around like an idiot. Now, the most important thing for most of you is going to be the clarity that the PSVR2's 4K HDR OLED display gives, and I've got to say, it's impressive. It's noticeably better than the PSVR1, I mean considerably better, and even, I would argue, better than my Oculus Quest 2, which honestly was a bit of a shock. I've already mentioned the eye tracking, but although new games will utilise this more in time, some of the graphical improvements are associated with oviated rendering. Basically, that's a feature which aims to render the area that you're currently looking at directly in a higher level of detail. Now, honestly, that's very difficult to test, partially because of the design of the product. Everywhere you look, it just looks better. But on a serious note, it could be a critical step in VR development overall. And the hand tracking seems to be better than the Oculus Quest 2 on the limited amount of time that I've played with it. The handheld joysticks, at first look, seem incredibly large and clunky. On initial inspection, I thought they were horrible, but actually when you get them into your hands, I'd argue they're better designed than the Quest 2 by quite some way, and they do feel great in the hand. They're very light and they're very, very nicely set up. All the buttons are very easily accessible, except for one, but I'll discuss that in a minute. They've also got haptic feedback, and it's really good, actually really, really very good. You get different haptic and resistance for different weapons and devices, and I really like that they've got internal rechargeable batteries, something which obviously the Oculus Quest and the Quest 2 never had. And of course, you've got the haptic headset feature as well. That's a really nice touch too. If nothing else, then it makes a surprising difference to the level of immersion, and in certain circumstances, it gets your attention immediately. There are a couple of negatives, not many. Although the peripheral vision is better than it is on the PSVR 1, I'd say it isn't anything to write home about. It certainly isn't blowing me away. I wasn't impressed with... the one button that I wasn't impressed with was the inside grab button. At first, I thought it was quite funny, as my son constantly dropped every weapon he picked up because he wasn't used to grabbing and holding them. As a Quest owner, I got used to doing that a long time ago, so it made me chuckle. But unlike the Quest, I found the position of that button caused my finger and my hand to ache quite quickly. Now, I didn't get any spasms or anything like that, but I think if you were playing long term, that could be an area that might cause some issues. There aren't as many games ready for the PSVR 2. I know a whole bunch of games have released alongside the PSVR 2, but we haven't got any of those, and they're very expensive, these games. For my Quest 2, I've got hundreds and hundreds of VR games, and they're all very, very good indeed. I do suspect that the number of games is going to change a lot in the next 24 months, and I really think they're going to expand upon the opportunities that the PSVR2 eye tracking gives them as well. So I'm really interested to see what sort of advances and improvements could be made in that regard. So overall, this is just a quick look. I've got to say I'm really impressed with it. The price is a bit of a sticky situation, but certainly there's a lot here that you're getting for that money, so maybe you can justify it a little easier. I would say this: if you've never experienced VR before, or you've been subjected to the PSVR1 VR experience for a long time, then I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to recommend that you definitely consider investing in this PSVR2 version. It is quite accomplished and a heck of a lot better than the PSVR1 version. If you're a PC VR player, then probably this isn't something you're going to need to jump about. This is very much more for those PlayStation players, I think. But I've got to say, I wasn't expecting very much, and I have been quite impressed, especially with the haptic feedback, which is a feature I'm now going to miss in any Quest 2 games that I play. So yeah, just a quick first look, and I'll probably come back and give you a more up-to-date review later on when we've spent more time with it. But yeah, genuinely impressed.